Welcome to the podcast with your favorite cash flow guys, Mike and Blaine. Giving you the best advice while having a beer. When you're running a business, there are problems every day. Let Mike and Blaine help you out and guide your way. Cheers to the good times with Mike and Blaine for business, beer, and BS.
Hey, it's Mike and Blaine. This is episode 173. 173. I'm Mike Mylan, also known as Cashflow Mike. That is my friend, my partner, Blaine Birch of Dry Run. What's up, my man?
Last week I made a crack because we were both wearing gray, and I'm like, we're starting off 25 wearing gray, and then we come in both today looking like we're going to a funeral or something.
They are laying the president to rest today, right? Jimmy Carter laid to rest today, so we're recording that right now. So hey, yeah, maybe we are in mourning a little bit.
Yeah, maybe it's like subconsciously we both picked black, or maybe that's just what I grabbed off the rack in the closet this morning. But next week we might want to try a little brighter colors, lighten it up a little bit. But anyway, excited to be back on our second show of the new year, second show of 2025, and we got this is neat. We got some beer sponsors that have re-upped for 2025 because you get to the end of the year and it's kind of all of them are done. Then we got a couple of new sponsors, including a mid-roll one. Stick around for the mid-roll, and we had a sponsor come back to us after a number of months here. So it's going to be really fun to have them back. But what are you drinking today?
All right, so I cheated, right? First of all, I went to HEB, and HEB is like a Texas institution, right? I mean, if you live in Texas, you know all about the grocery store HEB. But I went there, and I'm like going, something happened. 2025, they have got an amazing selection of beers, stuff I'd never seen. I'm like going, are you kidding me? So I went there this afternoon right before this show, and I got one. So I put the title where I included, not the title, but I included the theme of the beer in the show's topic, right? Nice. So we're talking about, the actual stunt of client conversation. So I am drinking the Evel Knievel, right? Come on, dude.
Nice.
Is that a cool can? That is a cool can right there.
That's
Evel
awesome.
Knievel.
Oh man,
now,
I remember Evel Knievel.
Yeah, this is a new brewery to me. Distill.
That's not a new brewery. That's actually quite a large brewery, by the way.
No, to me, it's a new one to me.
Okay.
Yeah, and here's why it's funny is that it's from Normal, Illinois, like Bloomington Normal, which is about 45 minutes from my hometown, Galesburg, Illinois.
Wow.
So I'm like going, I didn't know anything about this. I left there in the 80s, so
okay.
Of course it's probably not that old, but cool ass can, and I'm excited about it.
A very cool can. I love Evel Knievel. I remember some of the old, like the toys, the motorbike on the tracks and stuff when I was a kid. And Distill is they've been around. They're one of the bigger breweries in the U.S. So that's kind of funny that you just hit on it. That's a really quite a well-known brewery, and they have some fantastic beer. But Evel Knievel, that's awesome. Now I saw the topic today, and then I went to the fridge and went, oh man. All I've got are first my wife's sours that I'm not allowed to drink, and then just like awesomely heavy stouts that are all like 12 and 13% and stuff like that. But then I found one. Now it's from Hop Butcher, who I did last week, but I love Hop Butcher. But it just was so fitting, and it was also at least 8%, so it wasn't as bad. But client communication. And this is called Podium Party. I thought that was kind of a fun one. And they got the hot dog that's always on the Hot Butcher can. Like not always, but he's on a lot of the Hot Butcher cans. Really nice IPA. And I've got to go and do a beer run and try and get some more show appropriate ABVs for our beer. But the last couple of times I went over to Trevor's just over here and I went down to Craft Beer Quick Stop. I'm going to give them a little bump because they're a great place in Phoenix for beer. And I get stuck buying all these ultra heavy ones. And then when I go to Trevor's, I keep coming home with bourbon and scotch instead of beer. So I'm like, okay, I got to go over there. I got to get some show appropriate beer. So that will be on the list to do this week.
But when you say show appropriate, you're not talking about 10s plus on your APV, because that would be the opposite of our topic of communication, right? Because you get a little chatty, a little rambly, a little a little go go go.
We've tried it before. 8% on the border. I should be fine. But you get 10, 12, and yeah, like you said, I get a little chatty, and I got some really good beers in there that was awfully tempting. But I am going to get some show appropriate beer that I will consider. I'll try and get it like under 8%. Then I should be probably all right.
Hey, what's going on with you? I mean, you're high energy. Remember last week you were like going blah blah. You were kind of really low energy, really
I was
just
sick.
whatever.
I was
Sick. All right.
sick. I still have a little bit of a dry cough. So if I cough, or I'll try and mute, but sometimes it sneaks up on me. Yeah, I've just got over a cold. Like the last few days of our holiday, right before New Year's Eve, I was just sick. I was in bed, had this cold. My head was so clogged, and then I passed it on to my wife. And what's funny is that she gets sick about 3-4 days after me and somehow is better before me. So it's just like in and out, done, gone. She's fine. And I'm just like kind of a whiny baby that still has a bit of a cold. But I do have a lot more energy. So I think my cold is finally on its way out. So.
Well, you talk about that again, the show appropriate. I've never heard you say that, so I'm kind of stuck on it. I'm like, oh, that's an awesome way to do it. Because remember our worst show? You remember that? It was my birthday. It was the birthday show. It was the bourbon show.
Birthday bourbon show. Yeah. We may not do that one again soon because we had beer and bourbon in the show. And I got a 70%er sitting over. It's delicious, but it is way too heavy. So I definitely do that.
Yeah, but last week we promised that sometime this year we're going to do a live show together.
Mm-hmm.
And I forgot, but it was supposed to be at some awesome place. It was supposed to be like a thing.
We got to do it in person together, and that will be Scotch Day or Bourbon Day. It'll be
Scotch
Whiskey
bourbon,
Day.
yeah,
Scotch
whiskey
Bourbon
day. Yeah, all right, we'll go with that. All right, so hey, you know what? We talk a lot about beers. We talk a lot about getting this show started, but it's our beer sponsors that makes it so fun right off the bat. And I'm gonna start off by saying, hey, if you haven't checked out any of the videos on Rachel Barnett's YouTube channel, right? It's at Gentle Frog. If you go to YouTube at Gentle Frog, you will learn more about QuickBooks in just a small amount of time. All these things are like 1 to 5 minutes long. I mean, just super quick little things you don't know about QuickBooks, but she is going to help you put together your QuickBooks Live. Go check out her YouTube channel, Rachel Barnett for Gentle Frog.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just heard you just texted me today. Now, Devin, I've never got to meet you in person, but Devin re-upped for like 10 weeks. So, and he was still going. He had another week in the hopper here. So, Devin, we are really excited. We're going to have Devin around until the end of March. So that's super exciting. One of our past sponsors, Courtney, introduced us to Devin, and we thank you, Courtney, for introducing us to Devin.
You know what's cool about Devin? Just a regular dude, just a regular person. You don't have to have a company. You don't have to have a business to be able to sponsor and buy us a beer. If you just like listening to the show and think it's fun and you want us to talk about you, be like Devin. Be like Devin, right? Be a Devin.
Exactly.
I bet he's never heard that in his life. Be like Devin.
Exactly.
But no, biggest LSU fan on the planet. I don't know what he does now that football's over. I don't know what is. Do they do anything in LSU? Do they have anything? Basketball, maybe? I guess they wait for baseball. They were national champions like 2 years ago. So I guess he's waiting for baseball. But thanks, Devin. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Now you got to thank Pat, and then I'm going to go into one of our newest sponsors. So, but I'll let you thank Pat first. So,
hey,
and be nice. Since he brings you beer.
All right. Hey, neighbor Pat came down the other night. This is the guy, he could just walk into the house and make my night. We'll start off with a 2-minute conversation. It turns into 30 minutes just like that. And if you've ever had a friend where your conversation flies so fast that you forget and lose track of time just because it just goes, right? That's who neighbor Pat is to me. He's the guy that I can talk to about anything at any time for any length of time. So thank you, Pat.
Thank you, Pat.
So you were speechless. You were speechless, like going, "Oh my God, he didn't have any shitty comments about Pat."
I was a little shocked, to be honest, because this time you actually were sticking to your knitting on when you're talking with Pat, and that rarely happens. Okay, I'm going to talk about one of our newest sponsors here, and these guys were awesome. I just got to tell you, These guys, now I actually had them on one of my other podcasts. They sent me way over the top. They sent me 9 drinks. And I'm going to talk about them now
Mm.
because we've tried some of them. They're unreal. They have to be refrigerated. So I'm showing you the empty bottle, but Fresh Victor. And these guys do basically cocktail mixes. Now, you don't necessarily have to do a mix and cocktail. You can even mix it up with sparkling water or something like that. And in fact, Ken, who is the founder, actually told me he even cooks with this stuff. Like he'll marinate
Mm.
sometimes his meats. He does some ceviche with this. And the one we tried just a few nights ago was this Mexican lime and agave.
Hmm.
Now, you'll notice it's not called margarita. We made a margarita with it, but because you can do other stuff with it, they didn't write margarita on there. But I will say, made a margarita out of this, put in some, a nice sipping tequila. Like that's kind of all I have around. So I used it in the mix, and it was delicious. And I sat there drinking, and I kid you not, like what I love about these guys, this is fresh. You got to get this stuff. It's in the fridge aisle. There's no weird, glowing product like you see. So this is all natural, and you taste it because I've had some really good margaritas down here in Scottsdale that are legit, fresh made stuff. This was as good, and it comes in a little bottle like this, and they had like I think they have 9 different flavors because we've got some other one like our fridge has got a whole bunch of them in there. Go check out Fresh Victor. They got some good stuff going on there. So great little
So,
business.
so it's a mixer, right? It's a mixer for drinks. Can you drink it straight, or is it you have to mix it with something?
Well, when I looked at it, it seemed like they recommended mixing it, but I don't, because you could basically sort of thin it out, or like with some sparkling water or whatever. But boy, it was tasty. You could probably take this stuff and put it in a glass with an ice cube and drink it, and it's actually going to taste basically like a virgin
Mm.
margarita. Like it was really good stuff. Um, what I like about it is it's quality. It's quality over quantity. I really like that. And when I was talking with Ken, like I literally said, it's like who this is just. Well, he knows this, but it's for foodies. It's for people like me that pick the pizza place we go to very carefully, pick the the burger place we go, the taco place we go to,
Uh,
and try and find those real gems and the owner operated gems. And so I'm going to be promoting Fresh Victor for a few weeks, but I wanted to go into a little depth, especially our first time in here. These guys are great. Go check them out. I really like Ken, and they've done some really good stuff here. So yeah, go give those
I
guys a
know.
go.
Right, right. You got me thinking about like mixed drinks. You know, the one that's kind of hot right now that I see a lot of people starting to order. You know how it kind of goes in and out. I mean, different types and different styles of drink. There's
Yeah.
one called the Mexican Martini that is starting to just kind of. I'm seeing everybody
Oh.
ordering this thing. So think martini. So it's tequila.
Hmm.
But not like a margarita, but it's got some margarita qualities, but it's not triple sec. It's like a Cointreau or, a Grand Marnier, and not a lot of mixers. So there isn't a lot of mixer. There might be some type of, well, I don't think there is any like mix like that. It's
Hmm.
just tequila, some Grand Marnier for the, oh, what is it? The citrus type of event.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they'll put a little bit of a splash of olive juice and a couple olives in it in a martini glass.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I can't.
And
I'm having trouble picturing that with tequila, but I love olives, so that would be. Hmm.
yeah, it's slightly like a margarita, but because of the olive juice, it isn't, right?
Yeah,
Unless, so it's kind of it's more martini.
interesting.
Huh.
I'll admit I don't do a lot of mixed drinks. I was having the odd old fashioned for a while, and then I just find that I'm such a purist that I end up like I don't even put my bourbon or scotch on the rocks. It's just straight, and neat, and I just like it that way. It's just I like that's how I feel like you get the flavors and everything, and so
Yeah.
that's
I,
just how I got. That's what I do these days, right? So
I'll go neat with maybe sometimes I'll do an ice cube or two. That's about it.
yeah,
That's as fancy as I get with it.
yeah,
So, all
that's
right,
nice.
so we're talking today about communication, and I'm going to try to communicate with you guys. be a beer sponsor, go buy us beer. Go to you, go to the website. And there's lots. I mean, if you've never liked, subscribed, commented, done anything with our stuff, do it because it really helps get the word out. It helps. I mean, we can see it in the downloads. We can see it in the views. It
Yep.
really helps promote. So if you like what we're doing, tell somebody else. And we usually wait till the end of the show to ask you, but I'm going to say it up front this time.
We should be saying it up front. We always forget. That's the problem. We always are not very good at self promotion somehow. But go to mikeandblaine.com and it's $5. Like we got to mention that it's not expensive. It's like this started as a bit of a gag, and now we got beer sponsors every week. It's $5. Buy us a beer. We'll talk about you, mention you. Thank you. So yeah, visit us on mikeandblaine.com. But okay, let's dive into this topic here because I find it interesting and really timely as well.
Well, and so I'm interested in here what you say, what's timing about it. Here's what's happened in my world. If you guys haven't listened to the show, uh, these topics come about mainly a half hour to 10 minutes before the show. And I take it from whatever I'm talking about right then, right? Well, whatever I'm having the most conversations about is where this really starts. And I'm going to have a shameless plug. I usually don't do that, but I released a book this year called Don't Tell Me What to Do. And this thing is kind of taken off all of a sudden. It's got kind of a life of its own where I now have three different groups wanting me to do presentations. So I've been working on the presentation this week to be able to describe it and use it. So that's where I wanted to go because to me, I feel like one of the largest obstacles from an accountant point of view, I'm just going to go there, but you can apply it across broadly to all business. From an accountant point of view, they've always dealt with the past. They've always dealt with being super accurate and factual and really concise, right? If you think about a conversation an accountant has, it's fast. I have to get so many tax returns out this hour. Here's your stuff. We'll talk about it later. They don't
Yep.
spend a lot of time talking to you. The shift in the accounting world is I now have to start giving you advice. I have to, that's what I have to do to add value to be able to be relevant in a business owner's world. So what they're trying to do is figure out how do I go from being the gray accountant to a more vital part of your team, and they have to do that through conversation. So that's what I wanted to talk about today is that shift, that transition, how to do it, what looks good, what looks bad, and maybe you can add input from your side of the world on that, from the software side.
Well, yeah, like we as we got to the end of the year here and now kicking off 25, it was a little bit of that we talked about, a bit of a mental break, and then you start again. Of course, we had a bunch of time off, not time off work wise, time off from talking with people because we talk primarily with CFOs, and CFOs by December 15th, they're out of here and they don't show up till literally this week. Now they've all come, stampeding back in, and we get to talk with them. But the way we dealt with, clients and leads and everything in 24 is carrying on, but we're building on it in 25. And the biggest benefit we had, and I will say that this applies to exactly like those CPAs you're talking about that are having those client conversations. There is one rule that will make you successful is put on your listening ears.
Mm.
That is where everything happens. And it's usually the first rule that people break because they like to share. They like to talk at people, share things, share. The magic happens when you stop and listen and truly listen. And those are some of the things that we've really been working on and getting better at is when we stopped to do a little bit of, like I said, it's timely because we stopped to think about all of this input we're getting and what people are saying. We actually started to get out of our own way and take away some of our own biases. And it was a couple of aha moments of, notice people actually say this all the time and we say that. It's like they say A and we say B and they say A and we say B. And it's like, okay, we've got to listen critically all the time. So I would say that's a huge thing for them.
Yeah. So, yeah. In the book, I put a number to it. I think it's 70-30, right? Listening 70% of the time, talking 30% of the time. And what happens is that people feel uncomfortable. They're like, I'm uncomfortable with the silence. Like, I'm talking more because I feel like I have to tell you things, right? And the whole thing is don't tell me what to do, which is terminate every long lecture, right? That's what I'm talking about is stop talking at people, stop telling people what to do. And the hard part is, what do I do then? Right? Because
Mhm.
we've trained ourselves for our entire lives to tell others so that they have the same information. And the thing is, you don't need to do that. Right? They can come to the same conclusion, the
Yeah.
same, logical end to a conversation if you ask the right question. It comes right back to some questioning techniques, I think, that open that up and allow that other person to talk more.
Well, and it's there's tactics there that are really really useful. Silence is okay. You will be amazed at what happens when you just don't say anything. And in fact, I'm trying to remember what this, because it was right around Christmas. I was on with somebody. It wasn't one of our clients or anything. It was, I can't remember. I do remember coming out and saying to my wife, I'm like, yeah, I feel a little bad. I think it was with one of the banks actually. I was like, I feel a little bad because I didn't realize partway through that I had just fallen into just the old habits, like negotiation habits. And I just sort of sat there and I needed them to solve a problem for me because I, I remember actually now it was something. There's an issue with my credit card. Of course, it was coming up from Canada, and it was a real pain in the arse to get this all settled. And the tactic I fell into just subconsciously, I didn't even think about it, was they would say something, and I would just ask a question, and I would just describe my problem, and then I would sit there and not say a word. And around the time when it got uncomfortable enough, they start solving problems. And then you just kind of go back. And when it comes back to me, then I'd say, yeah, but this is a bit of a problem and this is why. And then you sit there and the silence. And so like, the silence leads to innovation. Like, don't fill the gaps, just let it sit, wait for them. And it's amazing how many problems get solved when you just keep your mouth shut and just be comfortable with the silence. It's like, I'm not uncomfortable with that anymore. So I can just sit there and just stare at people and maybe they're uncomfortable, but it's amazing what happens when you do that.
Yeah, see, that's one of those sales techniques they teach you during a negotiation. Is like the first person to talk loses.
I have sat there for 5 minutes before staring at someone else, just waiting who's going to crack first. It's like, it's true, right? It's those are skills. Like I want to interject here. Those are skills. Those are things that you can develop. You can learn over time. You can craft, and over time they just become second nature, and you can fall into that just naturally, right?
You know what screwed me up more than anything early on in the business career? So, fresh out of Highway Patrol, the way you talk to people in Highway Patrol isn't exactly the way you talk to people in business. They did teach us a process. It was ask, tell, make, right? Ask you nicely, then tell you to do it, then make you do it. That's kind of the process you go through. But
Right.
that doesn't work in business, right? A
No.
lot. All right, so I took a sales course, right? I just left the Highway Patrol. I took a sales course. Don't know which one it is. I don't think it's spin selling. It's just sales.
Yeah.
And every time you take a sales course, then I'm talking about early 2000s, late 99, 2000, 2001. So right in that period, everything was script based. Learn this script in this order and people will buy. All right. Well, what happens if they don't if they don't answer the way with it? I can't go to the or they ask me a question that's different than the script. I'll get all screwed up. I'm like, going, that doesn't make sense because now we're out of order and I can't go over to budget
Yeah.
when we're still on fact finding or whatever that is. Scripts totally ruined the way I talk to people. They absolutely ruined it. I mean, so
Mm-hmm.
one of the things I had to do was reprogram myself to talk to people like I talk to people.
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Yeah.
uh,
There's
because yeah.
a difference between script and structure.
Hmm.
And like, I know when I go in to talk with man, I met with a couple CFOs today, 2 or 3 yesterday. Like, it was just what I do all day. And I know, like, there's a structure to the meetings because I know what is likely to be effective is not me talking at them. So, and so part of it is like, if I go into a demo, I'm going to give you kind of the structure that's there. And it's not a structure that's sort of this hard and set rule, but I just find I fall into this and it works. Right. And I meet someone and naturally I'm like, I want to build a little rapport, but it's not like an intentional thing. I just like people. And it's like, hey, where are you calling from? Oh yeah, no, that's a neat place. And that's just natural. Like, you just like to chat. Right. And then I go from there to tell me about yourself. Tell me about the problems you're facing. Tell me, because I'm genuinely interested. I know I'm going to learn a lot, but also I'm like, then when I'm talking with you about dry run, I can put it into a bit of context. And these are not 45-minute conversations. It's amazing how far you can get in 5 minutes, right? Mm-hmm. Then I can go in, and as we're doing a demo, I've got a little structure to it, but it's not just like I'm reading from a script, but and I know it can always be improved, but it's the underlying format or structure that can be improved. But keep them engaged, ask questions, and talk about like, this is why we like to do it this way, and then we get to the end, and it's very conversational and comfortable. So it doesn't follow a specific script, but it does follow a structure. It follows like an outline almost.
Yeah, so that's I think that's right. That's exactly what I'm trying to do now, and that's what kind of developed over time. And one of the things that happened with me this year when I wrote this other book was that people were getting stuck in the structure that they had learned 20 years ago that really doesn't apply. They were still using terminology from questioning techniques or things that they had that the market had moved past. You know now, as well as I do, if you're going to go sell, or not you go sell, you're going to go buy something and somebody uses a sales technique on you.
Oh, you know, right away.
Yeah, or no, like going, hey, if I could do that, would you do this? If I could do that, would you buy? Those type of things, any of those closes from Zig Ziglar days and all that, they're dead. You have turned off the market to where people love to buy, but they hate to be sold. And that's what it feels like. You're just walking me down a path. There's another technique out there, Sandler sales technique. When somebody starts talking to me, I know it instantly. It's like going, they use this acronym called a TON. It's like agenda, how much time, obviously you're going to ask this nationally. I'm going to ask that. That's what ATON. When they say obviously and naturally, I'm like going, no, don't do that to me. Don't do it.
You can feel those things in coming a mile away, and like I guess our underlying philosophy now, because it wasn't a few years ago, like we fell into some of those traps too. Our philosophy now is we want to learn about the problem, and we want to educate you about how we're educate you on how we sort of view the problem ourselves, because that gives you some insight on what we're thinking, and educate you on how we approach it and how we're different. And when we're telling you about these things, it's because we're trying to help you make an informed decision, and we might not be the right fit for you. That's quite all right. We're not trying to be sneaky. We're trying to say, look, this is the problem we solve. This is what we're good at. Here's some of the stuff we're not good at. There's other ones out there that are good at that. And I think that's helped us and helps them, because we don't want to waste their time. We don't want them wasting our time. But it's like, the more clear we are on this is how we see the world and this is what we do, the better the response is, because they go like, hey, even if they don't have a use for us, they can kind of go, I totally get what you're doing, guys. Like, this is awesome. Might not be for me, but it's awesome. And that's a win for us. And you do that not by trying to sell them, is by having a meaningful conversation and just trying to like share with them, right?
Yeah, I get it. So you remember last year when it was the turn of the year, right? Just right after the first of the year, somewhere around mid-January, I kind of hit a wall. Right? I'm like, oh, all the holidays, I kind of hit the wall, and I'm like, I'm a little low energy, those type of things. You remember that? Well,
I remember one episode where you walked into, like, I'm low energy right off the
yeah,
hop. I'm like,
yeah, right
okay.
off the bat. But dude,
Yeah.
I took this stuff. Remember then? I took this stuff called Magic Mind back then. So when I took the
Mhm.
stuff called Magic Mind, this thing I was wired, and I talked about it. We talked about it for heck, I don't know, a couple of months straight, this stuff. And when you took it, you
Yeah.
got so much clarity, so much focus. I mean, I was dialed in. It didn't matter. I sat down and time flew just like this, and I was getting more work done in a matter of an hour or 2 hours than I was doing all the rest of the week just when I did this. Not only that, I slept better. Man, I was sleeping better than I think I had in a long time, right? Because it was just like I was so dialed in. And then all of a sudden, I can relax, right? Because everything was
Yeah.
starting to make sense. Well, Magic Mind is something that just came to mind today. So, it's somebody who's come back into our lives. It's somebody that's helping us out. It's somebody that loves and wants to help people like you and I build a better business. So, what do you think of Magic Mind?
I love having them back because they're all about just like what we talk about: proven efficiency, improving your mental state, and then helping you sleep. Which is, I'll be honest with you, I always have trouble with that because as an entrepreneur, shutting off the brain is really tough, right? And Magic Mind's come back to us, and it's been awesome because they've come back and said, "Hey, we're kicking off the year. Do you guys want to be involved?" I'm like, "Oh, sure." And I got to tell you, right now, they have a 24-hour pack of their focus and sleep shots. They're bundled together. And for the first time, they're going to be 45% off. And I just go to link below in our show notes to get this great deal and make 2025 the year you build that mental resilience. You improve your sleep and you wake up with clarity, and Magic Mind is going to help you do that.
I want to go back to this. All right. Because what we're coming to is like on a structured way to ask questions. I've, I have moved recently because I'm doing consulting to a philosophy that I used to have as a state trooper. So think about that. I'm consulting, but I'm falling back on some of my previous training, like we do sometimes.
Mhm.
Whereas I think it's more important to get commitment to an action, which means I want you as my client to do the thing because you think it's the right thing to do and you've committed to it versus compliance. I'm only doing it because somebody told me to do it,
Yeah.
right? It's one of those things. It's commitment versus compliance. And so again, I wrote the book, but the book was based on two different experiences that I had in my life. So this is where you're going to go, what the hell? How did you combine those two? Because nobody in the world combines these two things. So
Yeah.
as a state trooper, they put me through this course called verbal judo. So if you go look it up, you'll probably, if you go to YouTube, you'll look at all these videos of police officers and how they do their job. Verbal judo is about really, I'll sum it up as it's better to talk for 30 minutes than fight for three. Right.
Yeah.
Willing to talk to you. It's willing to keep the conversation going, but I'm trying to get commitment to an action. I'm getting you to see. That's where people ask you, hey, if somebody did this, what do you think should happen to them?
Yeah.
And if they say, well, they should be electrocuted, well, that's one thing. If they what they're doing is they're determining their own penalty because they know if they're guilty or not, right? So when you see cops say stuff like that, well, somebody did this. What do you think should happen to them? Right? They're really starting to talk about their own penalty if they're guilty.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
talking about? So I took this verbal judo concept, and then for the next, we'll say 20 years, I just kind of fumbled through client conversations, had some good, some bad. And instantly when it goes bad. Every time I tried to push on people or kind of tell them what to do, instant resistance. Instant.
Mhm.
Like, no, they're obviously defensive. Well, in 2020, I don't know what you were doing, but I was watching a lot of TV.
Yeah. There wasn't much else to do.
That's what
Another
I was doing. So,
Yellowstone episode.
so I was watching a lot of TV, and I'm not big on TV, but I'll sit down if Courtney's watching some TV, I'll watch some TV with her, and she started watching Hoarders.
Hmm.
So I watched one of them. And I'm like, I don't like the whole thing around hoarding. Right? It's sad. It's like it's
Mhm.
terrible. I actually seen houses like that when I was a state trooper. We'd go into places like that. But I started watching it differently. And I think if you just shift your mind just a little bit and go, I'm going to look at it from the opposite point of view, not the person with the disorder and how they're making it into a spectacle, but how are they really approaching that person? How is the professional, the psychologist approaching the person with the disorder? So I
Mhm.
started watching the psychologist, and what I found was that's magical. There's some things that they say that changes everything, right? So I went from watching two shows with Courtney to 14 seasons I binged over the like the next 3 years, right? I just kind of went through it. And I took notes. I took notes like, oh my God, the way he says this right then makes sense.
Mhm.
And have you ever seen it? Have you ever seen Hoarders?
Oh, I have. This years ago, but I don't think we watched many. The same thing is because it's a little hard to watch. It's kind of sad and to see people struggle like that.
Yeah, I thought so too. And I think it's just because I was a state trooper. It didn't phase me a lot of times. Phase me in the fact that I know somebody was there to help.
Yeah.
Right. So I just like when I go work motor vehicle accidents, nobody wants to see what you see at a motor vehicle accident, especially if it's fatal or if it's horrendous, But I didn't look at that in the same way. I looked at it as there are other people counting on me to do the right thing. There are other people in this person's life that are
Mhm.
counting on me to do the right thing. And that's the way I look at hoarders now is there are other people. And that's why they bring in the family or friends or people around, to go, hey, we're counting on you, doctor, psychologist, specialist in hoarding disorders to help our friend. That's who I was then because I'd have to testify in court. So my measurements, my interviews, everything had to be defensible,
Mhm.
because I had to be able to provide everybody with the right answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
The something that pops into my mind, like some of the things that we've
Hey,
experienced.
did you see Belt Loop said he still had to work during COVID? He wasn't watching TV, or she, I don't know who Belt Loop 29 is. But hey,
I had to work too. I just be sitting in the basement working, and then I would wear my sweatpants and go upstairs, and we would our lame attempt at staying fit is we would get on our stationary bikes and then binge watch TV while we pedaled very slowly and pretended that the world wasn't falling apart.
yeah,
That was a
right.
weird time, man. Like it's hard to even imagine how weird that was now, but
I've divided my whole life up into BC and AC. Before COVID, after COVID.
yeah.
Like, was that before COVID? I barely remember what we did back then.
Oh, I know. And it was weird to think that it was like 2020. It was like 5 years ago when Heather and I hopped in the car and headed for the border to go home, to Canada. So it was strange time for sure. But yeah.
All right, so imagine that this is the scene that got me thinking that this is how all conversations should go, especially when you're talking to your customer.
Yeah.
The scene is this, all right? So every episode kind of opens the same way. They'll give you kind of a history about the person and their family, or saying, hey, we really need their help. And then the first scene with the doctor is generally always at the front door. So this is the one I paid the most attention to. It's like going, that could be, because as a police officer, a former police officer, it's like going, your first interaction with somebody could be the most confrontational, the most deadly, right? The very first thing is when they could go, fuck this, I'm not talking to you. Or whatever happens. They get slammed the door, on you, and then you get a whole different scenario to deal with. So I watched what was the first thing they said. Now I realize that some of it's staged, like going because they know they're coming and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I watched it because you can't stage and rehearse a lot of that interaction. So let me set the scene for you. Doctor at the front door. person with a disorder opens the door. Over the shoulder, and sometimes leading up to the door, you can already see the problem. So when I talk to accountants and financial advisors, I'm like going, that could be you. You could get their financial statements ahead of time and already know what the problem is. But I can't just blast in the door or knock on the door and say, hey, I found your problem. Here it is. I got your shit. Here it is. I have to kind of ease into it a little bit. So it's hoarder on one side, doctor on the other, hordes behind. The whole audience can see it. Everybody knows that there's a problem there.
Mhm.
The first thing they say outside of hi, I'm Dr. So-and-so and all that, hi, they usually say something like, hey, tell me what I'm looking at, you know, or well, how do you think it got like this? Right?
Yeah.
They'll say one of those two questions, and it's the most disarming thing that you can do at the time. And that's what drew me in. You know, that's what drew me in. So, have you ever watched? You haven't never watched one, but what do you think about
It's so long ago,
confrontation that way?
but I think it makes a lot of sense. And like what you're talking about, it's that first, like it's making something feel natural where it becomes second nature to you, but it's something that works. You've tried it and it works. And if you're the first time trying to step into something, it's like you don't, like I say, you don't want to necessarily have the script. You want the toolkit. And if you haven't, let's say in your case, if you're dealing with CFOs that haven't advised a lot of businesses yet, and they're trying to get comfortable with it, start with this toolkit. Maybe the one thing that's scripted is the very first thing out of your mouth. What am I looking at here? How's business? Honestly, like the easy, how's business? That question in itself likely starts a conversation. And then you can have some structure because it's not just a aimless conversation. You have a structure of like, I got to learn about this. I got to get this point across. And something like something we were, I was saying that we had a little bit of aha moments recently. And one of the things that we realized is we were talking with CFOs all the time. And we thought efficiency was more important than it was. And as we started talking with our best clients over and over again, and the ones that came in and were really excited about using dry run, is they talked about the conversation with the management team. That was where all their focus was. It's like, how do I make a better conversation? How do I explain this to them? How do they, and one of them told us one day that they couldn't get through to this one customer. And then when they showed something that made sense to them, all of a sudden the business owner went, oh no, I have a problem. And it was nothing more than being able to see it. Right. So communication is paramount. Like it's just, that's where you win and lose. Right. And it's, you don't go with the script, but going with a plan. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I think you said it earlier with the structure, right? It's a structure of a conversation. And what I liked about that one is that it's the way to start. It might be their scripted thing is, hey,
Yeah.
I even say it on every client conversation I have is, hey, what's going on in your world? Because most of the time when people get used to that question, especially if I'm on an ongoing engagement,
Mm-hmm.
they know what I'm asking them is what's keeping you up at night? Why are we talking? What are you here to talk about? Because I call it clearing the noise, right? Clear the noise. Because
Yep.
everybody that comes into a meeting with you has something on their brain. This is what I want to talk about during this meeting. This is what I'm thinking
Yep.
about right now. Instead of this meeting, I'm thinking about this other stuff. Hey, what's going on right now? What's happening in your world? When you say that to person, you give them the opening. You give them, approval to say whatever it is on their mind, and that's what's on the table. And what
Yep.
I want people to do is solve that problem, not the problem you see, the problem they have. Does that make sense?
Yep. And it hits a level. It hits a level in there where it's not such a specific question that you are getting one answer and that's all you're getting. What dollar figure did you sell last week? But it's also not so vague. How you doing? Right? Like there's enough there that it brings them into the context of their business and they're going to start talking about it. And it gives you that entry point and that launching point.
Yeah. But what I like about a question like that up front is that it's non-judgmental. It's non-accusatory.
Mhm.
It actually allows the other person to just kind of rationalize it, like, oh, maybe I can convince him it's not that bad. Because you hear them start to justify, oh, well, I got that stuff over there for in hoarders. I got that for a craft I'm doing. Oh, that's for resale. I'm going to take it to the flea market. They'll start to justify some of the stuff that they're doing. Same thing with the business owner. Same thing with your client. If there's something bad, they're going to justify the way that they do things today. They're going to try to justify it. And this gives them the opportunity to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's like for the CPAs that you're dealing with that are moving to advisory, for a lot of them, it can be a real challenge because it's just out of their comfort zone, right? And you can't generally get things into your comfort zone until you have enough reps. So it's
Mm.
like here's the one side, and then here's a number of reps where you feel comfortable. How do you get started, and how do you get through, boy, that painful part?
Well, here's what's funny is that I told you I have a couple presentations coming up on this book.
Yeah,
I'm using this as I just keep kind of saying the thing, and it becomes part of my natural language, right? You got to believe what you're saying.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
if you've seen the movie The Dirty Dozen too, that's one of the best examples of repetition and rehearsal I've ever seen in
yeah,
my life, because he turned the whole operation into just a rhyme, and the whole team could recite it. I mean, if you guys haven't seen that, go watch just the rehearsal or phase of that movie. You don't got to watch the whole movie. Go watch the rehearsal phase, and you'll understand why it's so important.
yeah. And like a way to identify with it, I think, is you connect with things you already do. Because there's probably something you're doing that actually relates to this, where you're trying to learn something new, right? We like I'm a designer by trade, a couple of degrees in it. I had a creative agency for a decade, and I still remember when you're designing stuff, there's always the ugly face, we'd call it, at the start. And
Mm.
you're trying to wrap your head around it. You're trying to wrap your head around the problem. You're trying to accommodate all these factors, and it starts out ugly. And it's like, as you continue to work and understand what you're working with, it starts to get more and more elegant and more reduced and more just dialed in. And this is something that comes to mind. I was learning a new song. I play guitar, fiddle around every once in a while. I've played since I was a teenager, so I'm actually not like completely awful. And I was learning a new song, which I don't know. When you get older, somehow it is harder to learn new stuff, right? Like new songs. And I was learning this new song, and it sounded like ass, like it just did. And you're playing, and I'm like, it's tricky, it's really tricky. But I know if I stick with it, you get past the ugly phase. You get to the phase where it starts to sound good, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, that sounds pretty cool. And it just flips. It's like hitting that great golf shot. It's like it just flips, and you're like, got it. That
Yeah.
it's not perfected, but it gets from that 11:59 to the 12:01, where it's like, oh, this is starting to move.
Mm.
And the first conversations, if you're new to that, it's you got to go through the ugly phase. You're gonna have some casualties maybe at the start, at least in
Dude,
conversations, but you'll get over that hump, and it'll
hey,
start to become second
I
nature.
don't know if that's yours or not, but I want to use ugly phase in some of my just training. Can I do that?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, there's nothing magical about it. But
No,
it's true.
but it's a perfect way to describe. Hey, and I'll give you credit there and stuff. Hey, I was talking to Blaine, and Blaine calls this part the ugly phase. But yeah,
And I don't think I originate. Well, maybe I don't remember. I don't know if it was me. Maybe it was even one of my staff back in the agency days. I don't remember, but it was a thing. And I even think about it now. If I'm doing a little bit of design stuff, like trying to overcome something in dry run, I still do a little bit of that stuff here and there. And I can tell I'm like, I'm still in the ugly phase. I have to gut through it. Uh, the same thing can happen. I was doing something in a spreadsheet about a week ago, and it was the same mentality. Like I called it the ugly phase, because it was just, I had so much stuff and it was so cluttered, and I'm like, oh man, there's no way around it. You got to grind through it. And then suddenly the light bulbs start going on, and I started deleting tabs. And by the time I'm done, I'm like, oh my God, that's so simple. How come I couldn't do it right off the bat? Because you got to go through
Yeah.
the ugly phase. You got to gut through it. And then suddenly you start to understand it. Right.
All right, so Chelsea told me it's just a term to describe the stage and various processes where things look messy, unpolished, and chaotic. So I think it's just a regular
Sure.
term people use. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, it probably is, because it's just, that's what it is.
here's 5 places where it's common: creative work,
All
right?
right. Yeah.
Right? Business development, learning and skill development, home renovation and construction, and personal transformation.
Yeah, I get that.
It's a great way to describe it. Yeah, it's great.
Okay,
Yeah.
a little bit of BS here. I'm going to dive into a little bit BS, because this was actually last fall, but I replaced a light in our bathrooms, like, and they look really cool now. But I got to tell you, whoever installed the first light never got past the ugly phase. I pulled those light off, and I'm like, what the hell? What, like, I'm not a builder, but like, what the hell were these people doing? And I'm just like, this probably wasn't their first time, and it was just embarrassing, and I had to deal with it, and it's like, then I get mad and I'm like, oh, do this right. Okay,
Yeah.
you
Oh,
can do
yeah.
it right.
Yeah.
But that drives me nuts. Drives me absolutely
Hey,
nuts, right?
hey, so every single fiddle hopper that's out there that gets installed has to go through this, is basically what you're saying.
Always, always.
That was our best episode of sneaking those in. You did sticking to your knitting earlier, and I think I just put
Smooth.
fiddle hopper in there right there. It was all smooth. It was good. It was a
Not bad.
great
Smooth.
placement. Great
Smooth.
placement. That was our best one. That was our best
That
one.
was much better than usual. Where we wedge
Yeah.
it in sideways.
Well, here's what I think I've learned from every one of these conversations is you really can't push people to do something. I mean, I know sales techniques, you just can't push it. Like
Um,
I use the hoarders example again. One of the ones that I saw was the psychologist is trying to have a great conversation using all the great and proper questioning techniques, but the daughter standing next to him, interrupting, like, "Mom, this house is killing you."
yeah.
She's responding well to the doctor every time her daughter, who they have a lifelong relationship with, right? She goes, "This house is killing you." The mom will go, "No, it's not." And then the daughter will go, "Yes, it is." That right there was the classic example of she's responding to the doctor right. The
Yeah.
daughter's using the wrong thing, accusing her, judging her, and it's a fight. It's an instant fight. So
Yeah.
for me, the communication technique is to avoid the fight and get on the same page.
Yeah. And have the goal in mind.
Yeah.
Like, that is the key. Like, going back to me fiddling around on my guitar, when I first was learning how to play guitar, and best intentions, but my parents said, we'll buy you a guitar if you take classical guitar lessons. And I'm just hearing, I'll buy you a guitar. Okay. So
Yeah.
they put me, but I don't know why. I still don't know to this day why, but it seemed like they must have thought that's how you would learn the proper thing or something. And they bought me a guitar, but it was my choice. So of course it's an electric guitar. And so I would go to my classical guitar lessons, and I wouldn't listen to him drone on. And then I would go home, and I would stop on the way home, buy a guitar magazine from 7-Eleven. I would learn the latest Van Halen lick. And then I would go to my next week's thing and say, no, I didn't learn what you wanted me to, but check out, I just learned Running with the Devil. Just like,
Yeah.
I learned the latest guitar lick. And it didn't, and partly of my personality, I don't think I ever learned a single song class. I learned everything from the 7-Eleven guitar magazines, and I learned the stuff I wanted to, because my goal was to play like Eddie. Like that was my goal. Right. And so it was when you're kind of going like, you have to listen to go, what is the goal? What is the outcome? What are you looking for? That's where you want to go. And as soon as we start like imposing our will on somebody, it's not going to go anywhere. Right.
Yeah, but some of that stuff rubbed off on you, right? I mean, the chords, some of the basics of guitar, some of the things he said had to help you transition over.
I broke him.
No? Oh,
I broke him there. We were only a few weeks in when he started showing me blues licks, because I don't think he wanted to lose a student. So but I, like I said, like now there would have been useful stuff. Maybe, but it just wasn't my goal. And I'm kind of a bullheaded dick. So I did everything kind of on my own. But if he had sort of the first time in understood, like, what is your goal? Play like Eddie.
Yeah.
Then it probably would have, like, it may have been if he looked and went like, I know how to get you there, and I know how to make it fun and enjoyable rather than rules and tasks. Right. And it just, because you need that win. You need those wins. You need to like the song I was learning last night, and you're playing also like, well, that sounded pretty cool. And as soon as you get that, you're hooked. You're like, okay, cool. That was sweet.
Yeah.
Like, you're hooked immediately.
I've got a guitar sitting on that wall right there that has taunted me for about 5 years, because I picked it up at 50 thinking, I'm going to learn guitar. It's fucking hard to learn guitar. I'm like, are my fingers fat? Or are they too short? Are they, they don't work right? What's wrong with my fingers?
I got to tell you, when you're young, it's harder when you're older. I will say that, because when you're younger, I think I would sit there for hours, and you just don't even notice the hours go by, and you're just playing. And now, like, literally, I was learning a song the other day. I must have played for half an hour, and I walked into the kitchen and said, yeah, my arm's cramping up, because it was a tricky song, and I had to like hold my hands in this very weird way to make sure that it just all the strings rang when I was hitting them right, and weird movements and that. And I'm just like, my arm's cramping. It's like, it's harder when you're older to learn stuff like that. But
you know what you can learn, though? You can learn to like and subscribe and tell others about this episode, right? You can tell us about, tell them about, well, Mike and Blaine, the whole podcast, and get other people into this community. That's what you can do. You can do that at any age.
We have done, I got to tell you, when I mention to people, it's like, yeah, we're on next week will be 174. They go, what? You did how many episodes? Yeah, we've done a lot of episodes. And I think they get more fun and more interesting all the time. So definitely subscribe, like, and if you want to be a beer sponsor, like, honestly, $5 and we will mention you. And we get a pretty good pile of people on, especially on LinkedIn, that follow us. So,
hey, brother, we are in season 5. I wouldn't do it with anybody but you.
This has been, oh man, this has been so much fun. It's exciting to start season 5, and I look forward to it every single week. And I promise when we stop the episode this time, I won't shut the whole thing down, because I clicked the wrong button last week. After 172 episodes, I hit the wrong button and disappeared. So I won't do that this time.
There you go. Hey, we'll see you next time.
Check out their website at mikeandblaine.com. Then subscribe to the podcast and buy these guys a beer.